Hello, friends. So recently I decided that I was going to go ahead and try to read a few books that are talked about a lot over on booktok. And while I think most of you know what booktok is, just in case you don't, there's obviously an app that's very popular called TikTok. And booktok ends up being a portion of TikTok where people are primarily talking about books. You've likely even seen booktok tables at bookstores where they'll have a whole display of books where it's something like hashtag booktok or something like that. And even if you go on bookstores' websites, sometimes they have a section dedicated to books that are popular on booktok. Some of these books are books that a lot of us have seen and heard about and read and talked about for a very long time. And I don't want to say they're old news, but booktok is sort of discovering them and they're getting another boost now. And then other books are, I would say, partially getting popular because of booktok. So it's sort of a mix. And I decided that I was going to, originally I was going to try to do a reading vlog where I read a few different books that are talked about a lot on booktok or that you'll see on those tables. But the first one I picked up, I was like, I have to do a whole video talking about this book because this book was hilarious. And you'll see why. And the book is called A Game of Fate. When I decided to go on this little booktok adventure, I went to my local used bookstore, and they don't have an entire table, but they do have every now and then on the ends of shelves, they'll be like popular on booktok or something. And I saw this one. I was like, okay, I've seen this one a few different times now, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up. It's a Hades and Persephone, I guess you could say, retelling. There's a quote. It says, "Take her and I will destroy this world. Take her and I will destroy you. Take her and I will end us all." And then it gets into the synopsis. Hades, god of the underworld, is known for his inflexible rule, luxurious nightclubs, and impossible bargains. Used to control, he is not prepared to discover the fates have chosen his future wife and queen, Persephone, goddess of spring. Despite her attraction to the god, Persephone, an ambitious journalism student, is determined to expose Hades for his cruel and ruthless ways. She defies him at every turn, even as the chemistry between them ignites. Hades finds himself faced with the impossible, proving his future bride wrong. Regardless of his efforts, there are forces who wish to keep the two apart, and Hades comes to realize he will do anything for his forbidden love, even defy fate. Now that I have read this, I have found there's a lot of books that are popular right now that are Hades and Persephone stories. So this one's going to have a similar sounding premise to a lot of the other ones you've probably heard of. I think Neon Gods has something, Lore Olympics. Those sorts of books are all kind of coming out right now, and apparently Hades and Persephone is very much on trend, I suppose. But either way, I saw this one and I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick that one up alongside a few others. And then I went to Barnes & Noble on a different day, and I saw they had a very specific booktok table that said spicy talk or something like that. And I was like, oh, this is going to go a little bit beyond a fantasy romance. This might get into some more sensual territory. So just a heads up now for those of you that like to watch my videos with your kids in the room or in the car or wherever, some of the things that are going to get put up on the screen, just have that heads up. Obviously, everybody has different comfort levels when it comes to just how detailed the romantic scenes are in the books that they pick up. And even though I am very PG here on my channel, when it comes to the books I'm reading, if there's an intimate scene and the author chooses to have a little bit more detail, I'm not like clutching my pearls like, how dare you talk about something that most adults engage in. I'm not gonna be upset by it. And also, I think there's so many misconceptions when something is labeled as romance or fantasy romance. I think there's so many misconceptions. People don't realize that just like the fantasy genre having so many subgenres and age ranges, that there's so much to fantasy romance or just romance in general. And I'm not an expert. I'm trying to pick up more fantasy romance because one of my favorite stories of all time, it's actually a video game, I've mentioned it before, is Final Fantasy X. And if Final Fantasy X were a book, it would be a fantasy romance because the romance is very important to the plot. It's one of the main focuses. And I would say it's about half a love story and about half, obviously, a more fantastical plot. And it's a very fantastical world. But I think that if it were a book and it were considered fantasy romance, there's certain people that would pick it up as a video game, but then wouldn't pick it up as a book. So what I don't want to do in this video is try and perpetuate these very negative, limited views of fantasy romance and romance in general, or the readers of those, or the authors of those. So that's not what this is. This is just talking about this book, which was hilarious. I can't remember the last time I just was legitimately laughing while reading something. And here's the thing. I wanted to share with all of you some of these scenes in talking about this book. However, I decided, you know what, I'm going to add an extra layer to this video. So a lot of you know my lovely husband, Sean, is also a reader. And the two of us all the time are talking about the books that we're reading with each other. When we're walking our dog, when we're sitting on the couch, when we're eating dinner, we're just always talking about the books that we're reading. And I so badly wanted to tell him about this book. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and I'm going to tell him about this book with all of you. So it's like I'm telling him and all of you at the same time, so that not only do you get to likely be amused at some of the word choices, some of the scenes, not only will you get to be amused by it, but then you'll get to see my husband's reaction. A little more details about this beyond just it's a Hades and Persephone retelling. Hades, you know, he's like got this really dark reputation. Everybody thinks he's bad boy. And then this is told from Hades' perspective, and so the whole time it has some of the most like, but look, he's actually a really good guy. He's just a bad boy, but he's good because he hates when people hurt women and he hates when people hurt children, which, hey, you know, me too. But very much it's like, hey, everybody, he protects the innocents. He doesn't want them to be harmed, and he will get his revenge on people that hurt the ladies and people that hurt the children. Like, he's actually very noble, but he doesn't want people to know he's noble because then they might ask for favors. They might want to have somebody come back to life and be returned to him. And he can't be doing that all the time because of how it interacts with the fates. And you actually do have some interesting moral dilemmas here and there when it comes to Hades' decisions and why he wants to keep his dark reputation. But when you have him playing fetch with his dogs, which they do specify, the dog can sometimes be three-headed or sometimes it can separate into three dogs. It's just whatever it wants. But either way, when you have a character playing with his dogs, playing fetch with his dogs, when you have a character that's like really nice, takes time to care for his horses and things like that, you're like, okay, he like wants to protect the women and children, he loves playing with the dogs, he loves taking care of his horses, and he wants to beat on people and torture people who do unspeakable deeds. What a terrible guy. Like, you know what I mean? You're definitely... Like, I think it was Brandon Sanderson that said, you know, if you want to make somebody hate a character very quickly, have them kick a dog. And if you want people to like that character very quickly, have them pet the dog, something like that. That 100%, right? So you very quickly are like, Hades is actually just misunderstood, which I don't think that was... I think that the author knows, you know? Like, I think they're making it very clear to you. And then also... I didn't know this when I went into this book, but it would seem that this author has also written the Persephone side of the story. And then the Hades point of view was written, I believe, after, but it coincides with the Persephone. And it would not seem you have to read the Persephone one. It says Hades Saga #1. Nothing on the back tells you like it's a sequel or anything like that. And it's the same story. It's just you're getting the story through Hades. And looking at some reviews, some people did feel like this one didn't really add to learning about Hades. All it really did was give you the opportunity to see how much Hades like really wanted to bang Persephone all the time. But yeah, that is what it is. It's the dude constantly wants to do it with her. Like literally as soon as they meet, immediately he just like feels it in his pants. Opening of the book, the first time Hades sees Persephone, he has one of his sort of casino, nightclub, gambling dens, and she comes in and he sees her, and he's like, oh, right. And she kind of like looks at him, and she looks all flushed. So just lusting after each other immediately. He ends up talking to her and convincing her to play poker, and he has to teach her poker, and it's kind of like I'll answer your question if you win the hand, and then you'll answer mine if I win the hand, or whatever, right? Something along those lines. And that's kind of a thing throughout the book, is whenever one of the two of them doesn't really want to answer a question, they decide, okay, I'll make this sort of a bargain, I'll make this a game. But one of the games, at one point, so Hades has said he's at least 1 million years old. He's been alive for a long time. And he does interact with the upper world, is what they call it, right? There's the underworld where he's at, and the upper world, which is where we live. And it's modern society. So she comes to talk to him And she's like, I get to pick the game this time. And he's like, okay, what game? And the game she picks is rock, paper, scissors. What? No, are we really gonna play rock, paper, scissors right now? And we really did play. I'm sorry, my voice is getting so high pitched. So she's teaching him, like which one trumps what. And he's like, why does paper trump rock? That just doesn't make any sense. And she's like, well, how come ace is wild? And he's like, that's the rules. And she's like, exactly. And I'm like, is this sexy? I don't know. I've never played a sexy game of rock, paper, scissors. Perhaps I will have to use this the next time. I'm like, hey, Sean. There's another part. I promise I will give you more details. I promise. I'm just waiting for my husband so that you can really get the juicy details with him. But there's also a scene where Persephone, he's realizing like, I'm so into her, but I also know like nothing about her besides that I like to do her. And so he decides maybe it would be wise to get to know her a little better, and he's talking to her, and she mentions that she really loves to bake. And despite being over 1 million years old, he's never baked in his life, ever. Not once. Which, okay, I guess there are some things that if I was alive for 1 million years, I wouldn't do. I would think I had dabbled at least once in baking, but, I guess not. So he comes to her apartment, right? And he has to try to look like casual because he's always wearing, like, sexy suits and stuff. And so he ends up wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt or something. And then he shows up to her apartment, and she has a roommate. And her roommate is there with her boyfriend, right? I think the roommate's name is Lexa. And Persephone introduces them, like, this is my roommate Lexa. This is her boyfriend. And he meets them, and he's like, hi. And then she's like, all right, let's bake some cookies. And they go to bake the cookies. And just every single thing that she says, that she does, every time she reaches for something, he's like, gosh, I want to do her. Like, he wants to do her so bad. And then they start making out. She's like up on the counter or whatever, and he's making out with her. And I was sitting there like, this is a small apartment. Isn't her roommate right there? Right there? He's feeling her up. And I'm like, are they about to do it right in front of her roommate? And then the roommate's like, ahem. And then she's like, do you guys want, and this is just the best, she's like, do you guys want to watch Clash of the Titans? And then he's like, the old or the new one? And she was like, the old one, I think she picked the old one. He's like, okay. And then they sat and watched Clash of the Titans. And I'm like, what is this book? There are so many moments within those types of scenes. There's specifics that I feel you all should hear. They're very funny. They're very adult. So, if the kiddos are around, maybe listen to this with headphones. This is when we're getting into the things that I'm going to have my husband join me for. So we'll go ahead and transition on over to that. Sean has read the synopsis of the book, so he has an idea now of what it's about. So you notice that there's like nightclubs and stuff that
I did notice that, yes.
So I informed the good people that they have this thing throughout the book where, because she's a journalism student and whenever she's trying to get information on him, because she's trying to like show that he's a terrible person, that whenever they want to get information from one another, they end up usually playing games. You can guess the kinds of games given his nightclubs and gambling dens and stuff. So, like, what would you expect them to play?
So they're trying to get information from each other?
Yeah. So, like, if you lose in a certain game...
Oh, poker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? That makes sense, right? So, at one point, he picks poker.
Okay.
He gets her to answer questions he wants answered. And she, at one point, gets to decide what the game is, and she picks rock, paper, scissors.
On a personal note, if I were Hades and I was like, let's play some poker, and then we played, and then I'm like, what do you want to play? We'll play something, and then the person said rock, paper, scissors, I'd probably like, so I'll call you, like...
How about we play Connect 4?
Yeah, it's
or
like,
a tic-tac-toe.
It's like, okay.
Let's go to the park and use the really big ones, like the toddlers use.
Yeah, exactly. Drop it. I was thinking like Duck, Duck, Goose. So I was like, what kind of...
It might as well be.
Yeah.
It might as well be Duck, Duck. They would need more people.
Yeah,
though.
they would, exactly. Yeah.
That or like Duck, Duck, Goose with body parts.
I was imagining them just like running around a circle of adults. I feel like that's a big drop off. If it was like poker, then... I don't know. horse and they're shooting basketball or something, and then rock, paper, scissors. I'm hoping once you find it, I'm hoping it's like really dramatic, like a rock, paper, scissors manga, like where they're like thinking like, if he plays rock, then I should play paper, but he will be expecting me to play paper, so he'll play scissors, and therefore I should play rock, unless he anticipates.
Shauna's gonna do a dramatic reading.
Fine, she agreed at last, but I get to... Fine, she agreed at last, but I get to pick the game. His instinct was to reject her offer, and the words were on the tip of his tongue. No, I hold the cards. Finally, he grinned. Very well, goddess. He left her alone for a few minutes, long enough to change, and when he returned, she was standing near the windows. At his appearance, she looked at him over her shoulder. His steps faltered, and he paused in the doorway, staring. She was beautiful, wreathed in the landscape of the underworld. This is a beautiful... Oh, sorry. This is a beautiful view.
You didn't give her that voice earlier.
I know. Very, he breathed, and then cleared his throat. Tell me about this game. She grinned and turned fully toward him. It's called rock, paper, scissors. She explained the game, demonstrating the various shapes, rock, paper, and scissors, with her hands.
With her hands. What else would she use to describe the shape?
Here's an actual rock. Have you seen a rock before? Here's some scissors. He's like, I've never seen scissors before. Despite her enthusiasm, Hades was not impressed. This game sounds horrible. You're just mad because you haven't played, she countered. What's wrong? Afraid you'll lose? Hades laughed the question off. No. It sounds simple enough. Rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, and paper beats rock. How exactly does paper beat rock? Paper covers a rock, Persephone said. That doesn't make sense. Rock is clearly stronger. Persephone shrugged. Why is an ace a wild card? Because it's the rules. Well, it's a rule that paper covers rock, she said. Hades smiled at her retort. Quite the retort.
Quite the retort.
It's a
clever.
real zinger saying, just explaining the rule. Like, oh, burn. He had smiled more in the last hour than he had in his lifetime. So
he's lived for over a million years.
That's what I was going to ask. That's heartwarming. Ready? She asked, lifting her hand and forming a fist. Hades mimicked her movements, and she giggled, hee hee. Clearly, this was amusing for her, and he groaned internally. The things he did for her already. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot! She spoke the words with fervor. She was definitely having fun, and for that, Hades was glad. Yes! She shrieked.
You're making her sound like, was it Princess Peach?
Arms flying into the air. Rock beats scissors! Hades frowned. Damn! I thought you'd choose paper. Why? Because you just sang paper's praises, he explained. She giggled some more.
She didn't sing paper's praises.
Yeah, she just explained the rules.
The game work.
Silence stretched between them for a moment. Persephone's earlier excitement subsiding. The atmosphere is changing, and Hades did not like it. He wanted to recapture their earlier reverie. I'm not smiling as much as I had been. So I don't want to malign the good name of J.R.R. Tolkien, but I will say that's about what I think of Bilbo in The Hobbit when Gollum has agreed to a game of riddles, and Gollum's like giving him his best riddles, and then Bilbo's giving his best riddles, and they're going at it, and then Bilbo's like, what's in my pocket? Dude, Bilbo, you kind of... Gollum's over here trying to play by the rules and being an upstanding, weird creature thing, and then you go, what's in my pocket? Get out of here. That always made me mad. I'm like, that's... Anyways... Bilbo should go play rock, paper, scissors with Hades. You're not even in it.
I know, because you're the focus.
All right.
I explained already about the baking scene, right?
Oh, okay.
So, he's trying to get to know her a little bit better, because all he really knows is he likes to do it with her. And so he's like, I should get to know her a little better.
Okay.
Turns out she really likes baking.
Okay.
So they go to her apartment.
Baking and rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, she's got it all. Sean is going to do another dramatic reading of the parts of the baking scene.
This is Hades speaking.
Yeah.
Please, instruct. It took her a moment to speak, and Hades smirked. He hoped she was just as distracted as him. What fantasies did she get lost in at night or at work while they were apart? The most important thing to remember when baking is that the ingredients have to be measured and mixed right, or it could mean disaster. He heard what she said, but his mind was on other things, like shoving his hand down her pants. I don't like this.
I know, but shoving his hand down her pants is the least sexy way to say that.
Yeah! He had intentions of scooping her into his arms and feasting on her mouth, but she had other plans. Now, we make icing. She smiled, eyes alight. She's so nice.
She's so innocent,
yeah, so
nice.
innocent. He'd have liked to lick icing from every part of her body, but she handed him some type of cooking utensil with a narrow handle and wire loops. What am I supposed to do with this? He asked. It's a whisk. You'll beat the ingredients together, she said, and poured various ingredients into a bowl, pushing it toward him when she was finished. Beat. Now that was something he excelled at. Happily. Use this to scoop the batter and make them into 1-inch balls. Now, I did not read that like that to be silly.
There's ellipses.
There's an actual ... balls. She cleared her throat when she said the word balls. Sorry, so let me do it actually accurate. Use this to scoop the batter and make them into 1-inch balls.
After all of that, he starts like making out with her, feeling her up.
Oh,
and I
dear.
was like, are they gonna start doing it? Isn't her roommate around and her roommate's boyfriend, right? Or her, yeah.
Yeah.
So then her roommate goes like, while they're making out.
Everyone's clearing throats.
And you know what the roommate asks if they want to watch? Clash of the Titans.
That's a terrible movie.
This is the best part, okay?
Okay.
So
Oh, ouch.
there's a lot of like sexy time in the book.
Okay. Is there really?
Yeah, between all the rock, paper, scissors
Wow,
playing and
okay.
baking, they do it a lot. Persephone, she's like this sex kitten. She's like really sexual and like flirty and whatever.
Okay.
But she's also a virgin.
Oh, okay.
You know. But
Okay.
like this is the level. I don't have this one saved, but there's a part where they're about to do it, and then his assistant walks in, and she's like, "Oh, sorry," like all awkward.
Uh-huh.
And then he thinks like maybe he should use his body to shield Persephone a little to give her some like, you know, decency in this moment.
Okay.
Persephone's idea is while this assistant comes in, she like grabs him and starts like doing stuff to him.
Oh.
Like in front of the assistant.
All right.
And, you know, like a virgin. Lots of sexy time, right?
Okay.
There's lots of sexy time. Most of the time, they use words that you would kind of expect.
Okay.
They phrase things in ways. The shove,
Sure.
he wants to shove his hand down her pants was one that made me laugh because, like, that wasn't really the usual. But this is the best one, okay? You have to read just this sentence. It doesn't even sound dirty because it's,
So outrageous.
yes.
Where do I
starts with
start?
just Hades. Just that sentence.
Sorry. Hades pulled her shirt off and dumped her out of her pants before diving between her thighs. But dumping her out of the pants. Like,
That's
just-
exactly.
just picked her up and just
That's
shook
okay.
her out.
Yes, so
It's like she's a trash bag. Now I'm just taking it literally, but also diving between her thighs. I'm just imagining him just like sliding into home, you know, like he's like, yeah. Well, I guess it'd be, you know, yeah. Anyways,
yeah.
head first dive.
Well, head first is perhaps
Yeah,
the route, so maybe it's good imagery, you know.
maybe. Yeah, you shared that with your colleagues.
Colleagues. Yeah.
What did they say? Were they fans of her being dumped out of her pants?
I did ask because I laughed so much at Jashana if I could share her reaction to this.
Okay.
So I thought we could just play it.
What do you mean? this is so stupid. But this is what it makes me think of. It sounds like what you're trying to say is he grabbed her pants and then like shook her pants upside down and like dumped her out of them.
That
Like,
is, we had
you know
the
what I
same
mean? Like, you have a
reaction.
box with a bunch of shit in the box. To dump everything
dump
out
it
of
out.
the box, you would pick the box up and like flip it over and like dump everything out of it.
Well, that was super fun.
Thanks so much for watching. Have a lovely day. We'll see you later. Bye.